Hello. Chapter 1, The Rise of Greek Civilization, The History of Western Philosophy by Bertrand Russell. So on page 21, I think it's page 3 if you're looking in the book, Bertrand writes that philosophy begins when Thales predicted an eclipse. Well, firstly, you should note that I don't really know how to pronounce whether it's Thales, Thales. I don't have much philosophical knowledge. Anyway, so this chappie's predicting an eclipse, and I get to think, and I think, well, hang on. Why does philosophy begin then? You know, Stonehenge predicts the summer solstice every single year. And I know it's not written, but it's there in stone, and that's, you know, that's pretty massive. So I look back to the text and I think, well, what else did Thales do? But Russell doesn't even answer that. He's just wandered off. And David, in your weblog, you say at about 5 minutes in that Western civilization began on May 28th, 525 BC. Firstly, I think we need to define civilization. And secondly, well, the Celts were around at this time, and although a lot of their history was wiped out by the Romans, I still think that they have contributed to Western civilization and shouldn't be discounted. So I just want to say that I disagree with his premise for the first chapter, and I think that he kind of uses it as a vehicle to show off his knowledge of classical history and poetry, because that's what we treated to next. And he delves into some of the things that he goes into are really interesting, but then it kind of just goes down into drunkenness, sex, death, and it all becomes a little Titus Andronicus. I want to go back to civilization for a moment, because on page 33 on my book, I don't know, on the web book, I don't know what it is on the actual book, Russell gives us a definition for civilization, and he says that civilized man is distinguished from the savage mainly by prudence, or to use a slightly wider term, forethought. And the definition of this forethought is, for example, tilling the soil. And therefore, by Mr. Russell's own standards, Stonehenge is an act of civilization, because obviously they've built this huge structure that predicts the solstice every year. And of course that was around in Mr. Russell's time, but he chose to ignore it. And then again on civilization, he writes that that civilization requires forethought and law and custom and religion. And I think the Celts displayed these. So again, I disagree with him. There are some things that he writes that he doesn't go into further that I thought were quite interesting. On page 34, he said, "Science may set the limits to knowledge, but should not set limits to imagination." and I thought that was something that's very interesting. Yes. I agree with your comments on Theotokos. Also, Mr. Russell wrote about how the institution of private property led to the subjugation of women and the creation of a slave class. And I thought it was really interesting, but again, it's just one of those little comments that he throws out there. Anyway, so there we go, chapter 1.